Welcome to the Roto Curve video slate for week 6. Holy hell, we are already in week 6. How time flies when you're having fun. I, of course, am here with Jim McCormick, and we will get to the picks shortly. But before we start, we got to tell you about promo code Curve. You save $2 on a weekly premium membership for rotocurve.com. And we got free trials available for it now. So check that out. What does it membership include? Of course, position rankings, projections, premium cheat sheets for each week. You get DFS tools like DVP rankings, points per attempt, red zone. You get optimized lineups. You get access to player ownership percentage. Let me work on getting this up because we all know I am technologically deficient. Let me give you, here we go, free trial this week. All the stuff I just mentioned, rotocurve.com/NFL-trial. You don't want to miss it. You really don't. This is good stuff. We got a bunch of great writers. I was watching a podcast the other day with Adam Pfeiffer, TJ Hernandez. We got everyone. So make sure you give the trial a shot. Jim, let's get to the quarterbacks now. Week 6, very difficult slate for quarterbacks, I think. I know I've been looking at it. It looks like either you spend up on the top guys or you go to the very bottom. So let's see if you got the same take or a different take on quarterbacks this week.
No, I think we're on the same. It's getting scary here. Maybe we should try to bring back the daily beef so we can yell at each other, because I agree that it's a strange market. There's not a lot in that middle that's really that interesting in terms of just settling on maybe that, for DraftKings prices. There's nothing in that $6,000 kind of range that I like. I think it's either Ben Roethlisberger. You're going to take him on the road here. There was a funny meme going around this week of, Miami painting their end zones to say welcome Antonio and Le'Veon. I think that's pretty accurate. The last 2 weeks is just ridiculous. I know some of it could be a home thing, kind of a Drew Brees setup here, but that offense, even with maybe some guys dinged up, like Sammy Coates is a little dinged up. His floor is just so high in terms of how that offense is going to move the ball. The last 2 weeks he's averaging, a touchdown on 13% of his throws, which is ridiculous. I just think the floor is really high there. But really, if I'm going to pay up, I'm going to try to find some room for Cam Newton just to get into that game, to get into that Saints game. I know they've been kind of a depressed product so far, and there's no discount on him coming off this injury, but let's be honest, it's not like it's a physical injury. I'm not discounting a concussion. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that he's not coming off something that's going to limit him in terms of mobility. This isn't like an ankle or a knee injury. This isn't a soft tissue injury. It's going to slow him down. He had 5 touchdowns last year against the Saints in the Superdome. I don't think that's the floor, obviously, but I think 3 touchdowns and 300 total yards is the floor for him. So that's a guy, if I'm going to pay up, it's one of those 2 guys. I'd probably rather in cash, to be honest with you. He's a risky guy in some views, but I actually like Alex Smith. I really do. I like the Raiders are the Saints of the AFC. They're just giving up tons and tons of yards. They're giving up 8.85 yards per attempt. I think there is something here to be said about Andy Reid coming off a bye. His game script is always pretty strong. He's got one of the best records in NFL history out of the bye. His teams are just well prepared. I think Jamal Charles, the training wheels come off, and that's actually just added upside. So I think the floor is really high for Smith. You're not paying for ceiling with Smith, obviously. That early game this year that he went crazy, that's an outlier. But I think, last year he had 2 touchdowns in each game against them, averaged 40 rushing yards per game. That's kind of something sneaky about him. He's just a safe guy. I think he gets you, 18 fantasy points across both markets, and you're not paying much for that.
Yeah, I'm in a weird spot where I don't love Alex Smith for cash. I like him for tournaments because I worry about him, but I really like one of his receivers, which we'll get to. And I'm sure by process of elimination, you can figure out who I'm talking about. But for cash games, I always worry with Alex Smith. So this, 1 week last year was my best week. I went with both the quarterback and the running back from the same team in cash, and it just so happened that the quarterback threw a 60-yard touchdown to said running back, and I think I'm going with that strategy again this week just because of their prices on DraftKings. I like Tyrod Taylor against the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco's 30th in terms of time of possession, which means their defense is on the field a lot. And if you look back to last year, Chip Kelly was dead last. So it actually has room to go down. So the fact that Taylor's going to get a ton of opportunities, the fact that his floor has basically been 18 fantasy points. I mean, he's gone since the opener, at least. He had a bad game, but since that has been 25, 17, 16, 6, 15.8, and he's basically the minimum. I'm definitely okay taking that shot because I think it's worth spending up at the other positions this week. I agree with you. I think if you're going way up, it's Cam Newton in cash games. And I also like Russell Wilson against this Atlanta defense that ranks pretty close to the bottom in terms of defending every position, at least in terms of fantasy points allowed. So I think those are the way I'd go in cash. And if you're going a different way, if you can afford it, which I'm not sure you can, but if you could spend up a little from Tyrod, I think Carson Palmer's a little safer. Probably no Darrelle Revis this week, at least we think at this point. But either way, the Jets have been a mess in the secondary. So I think Palmer and Tyrod Taylor are the ones if you spend down. If you want to go higher, go Wilson or Newton. Obviously, it's hard to make a case against Newton, but those are the guys that I like there. As for tournaments, do you see any way of differentiating, or are you kind of on the same guys?
In some sense, I'm on the same guys. I don't see a ton of reason to get off of. I do think that, in a tournament this week, I don't see a ton of high ceiling guys in that middle tier like we talked about. The Phillip Rivers, they're kind of – obviously he's already playing tonight. He's playing Thursday, and he's off the board a little, to some degree with the matchup. Brian Hoyer, I guess, is a guy that I'm still willing to take on in tournaments. The price really hasn't left that much. He's had – only Joe Flacco has more passes over the last 3 weeks than he does, although Joe Flacco's averaging like 5.5 yards per attempt, which is disgusting. This guy's averaging a normal amount. He's averaging 7.7. He's efficient enough. I mean, there's nothing special. At some point, there is the theory that Brian Hoyer becomes Brian Hoyer again. But, the Jags don't really have a sustained pass rush themselves. I don't buy into what they did against the Colts. I think, everybody can get a pass rush against the Colts. I mean, in some sense, Andrew Luck feeds into that himself. But, yeah, I just think Hoyer's a guy who you can get cheap, can scale up. And so far, he's been a tournament guy. I mean, he's been a 300-yard, 2-touchdown guy. He gives you that kind of that higher echelon score without the price tag. I actually think that Tyrod, I do like Tyrod, but I had him in my tournament file only because I do worry, I guess, just game flow wise, that it becomes just a shady fest. They're averaging 170 rushing yards per game under Anthony Lynn, the new offensive coordinator. Now, obviously, whenever you see a team lead the league in rushing these days, it usually includes one of these running quarterbacks, right? I mean, Seattle, Carolina, it's just a natural. When your quarterback gets 500 plus yards, it's going to help, buoy the whole thing. I think that's what might happen here. You're going to need some rushing from Tyrod. But, yeah, I agree with you. It's a soft setup. And being a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I can tell you that Chip Kelly does not play complimentary football. So I do agree in the sense that if this Bills defense, I think one interesting stack would be LaShawn and the Bills defense in some ways.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that correlation is always interesting for stacks, and we'll definitely get to that in our stack video. But all right, let's go to QBs here. Drew Brees at home always kind of interests me in tournaments, although he's not really at the top of my list this week. A guy who really, really, really is interesting to me this week is Dak Prescott, especially if Dez, who looks like he could be trending in the right way, suits up, because we look at this game, and the Packers are allowing 2 yards per carry to running back so far. So something's going to have to give in this game. Either the Packers are that good of a run stopping defense, or this Cowboys offensive line is going to dominate them. And there are two ways to look at that. Either you go Ezekiel Elliott and you think he's going to be very low owned and he's going to dominate this defense, or you think the Packers are for real and you take Dak Prescott, who, if they are stopping him, if he's not going for 150 type yards like he has the last few weeks, then we got Dak Prescott's volume cranking up, especially if Dez plays. I think there's room for Prescott not only to be help out in the running game if Elliott's struggling, but there's room for him to throw more passes than per usual. And I really like that prospect. We'll get to the receivers. There's definitely at least a receiver that I like there as well. But Dak Prescott against this Packers secondary, which hasn't been very good, especially without Shields, that one really jumps off the page for me for tournaments. Also, I kind of like Matthew Stafford at home. I mean, we're talking about a guy who set the yardage record in his first 100 games. He's been kind of back and forth in terms of good game, bad game. He's coming off a mediocre one, but at home in the Dome, I think you got to give him some credit there. But besides that, I mean, we talked about Alex Smith. I prefer him for tournaments, but I'm kind of on the same guys this week. It's pretty much, that grouping of 6-7 quarterbacks all throughout, regardless of format and regardless of site. So there's not much more from me. Jim, do you have any final words at the quarterback position?
No, I this isn't to counter you particularly, but I am curious to see how this Dallas Green Bay game plays out, because it is truly strength on strength. It's the leading rushing team in the league versus, the Packers aren't just good against the run like you've mentioned. They've given up the second fewest yards since the Super Bowl era through 4 games. So there's something like, and again, they've also played teams. I think some of it's skewed by opponent, but really they played teams who do at least at times commit to the run. I mean, they shut down the Vikings. They've done some effective things so far. And the other thing, too, is they're second in the league in pressuring the pocket. 38% of opponent dropbacks, they've gotten a pressure. It'll be interesting. I think this is a huge litmus test for Dak. One thing I can say is it matches tournament, because I think people know that. I think people know that Green Bay has been really effective. So I don't imagine his ownership will be very high. So in terms of differentiation, I can definitely see the Dak angle. I guess in a similar price range, I'm going to go Tyrod in that debate.
Yeah, I definitely prefer Tyrod. Again, I think he's going to be on the field a lot, but I do think Dak has an opportunity. And part of the reason is if the Packers are this good, if they get to the goal line, they give Elliott 1 carry, and he's running into a wall, that it could be the Dak show in the red zone.
They're going to contend. I understand your argument here, because if they're going to contend, it's going to have to go through Dak.
Exactly. I mean, I have seen people say it's going to be a slower paced game. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. In Lambeau Field, I think a faster paced one could always break out. So it's a tournament play only. I understand the arguments against him for cash, and that's why I'd rather have these guys with the much safer floors. But Prescott has been awfully impressive, and he's finding a way to manage through these, mediocre targets that he's kind of working with. So it has been interesting to see. But that's all for us in terms of quarterbacks. Remember, rotocurve.com/NFL-trial. Get you all the stuff in a normal a package, like position rankings, projections, cheat sheets, DVP rankings, points per attempt, red zone, stuff like that. So make sure you check it out and stay tuned for us. We will start talking about running backs in the next video.